I call Scott Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And before I commence my contribution, I'd just like to acknowledge with grateful appreciation the speech of the member who has just resumed her seat. I think she neatly and aptly summed up the opportunities and challenges that the Select Committee was confronted with in terms of addressing what, on the face of it, seems like a relatively minor change, but actually a change that extends powers to dock rangers, full-time dock rangers, and indeed to full-time fish and game rangers to help them do the good work that they have done for so long and will continue to do to protecting our native creatures that these days, sadly, are highly valued on the international black market. It's 60 years since the principal legislation was introduced. Most of us in this Parliament haven't seen any change to this legislation in our lifetimes. And so I want to commend my friend and colleague, the Minister, the Honourable Maggie Barry, for introducing this piece of legislation to the House. I think it's a good piece of legislation. It's balanced, it's measured, and it's appropriate. And it modernises a piece of legislation that actually has served us as a nation well, and it's served the Department of Conservation well. But it is time to modernise. And I particularly noted at Select Committee, and the Minister made reference to it in her speech, that the principal existing legislation has that rather quaint gender-specific legislation that was typical of the time. And for instance, currently, dock staff, if they need assistance from members of the public, for instance, to help them do their duties and maybe apprehend or intervene in a matter, they are permitted by statute to only request assistance from men. And of course, that's something that we would want not to have necessarily limiting the ability of our of people of whatever gender to assist and be involved in the good work of dock officers should they need it. Sir, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta and the Minister in their speeches both made reference to the delicate balance that we had to find in terms of getting the civil liberties aspects of this legislation in perspective and about the right balance. This relates to giving people some quite serious powers, the power to stop, detain and arrest. These are not powers that are given lightly by this Parliament, and nor should they be. And so very careful consideration was given to how far we wanted to extend those powers. And in the end, the Select Committee went further than the bill first introduced, and we, after consideration and careful thought, decided to extend those powers to full-time fish and game rangers, because they do excellent work. In fact, Fish and Game do excellent work, both full-time and voluntary honorary officers. But we thought on balance that the appropriate position to land this legislation was that full-time staff would be the best place to do that, and not to extend it to volunteers in this situation. I think that was about right, and I don't think that is in any way a slight or a discounting of the work and effort that Fish and Game do in our conservation estate and indeed around the country. So, sir, this is a very good piece of legislation. It's, as the member Nanaia Mahuta says, quite a small piece of legislation, but its impact is quite large, and its impact on protecting our native creatures and species from those ratbags that want to come here, steal and take them away and then sell them on the international black market, which I think, as all New Zealanders would want that to be stopped. This bill extends powers to enable dock rangers, full-time dock rangers and full-time fish and game rangers to do the job that they already do, but to do it better. I commend this bill to the House.